All right, welcome to this video. In the former video, I already spoke about the clone stamp tool, and it's a good thing we already know how to use the clone stamp tool. So in this video, I'm going to talking about the history brush tool. Okay, these tools are tools that you'd need once in a while. They're not like your fairly common tools. They're not like your normal brush tools that you'd always need. Okay, so you need them every once in a while. Okay, and so to work with the brush tools, the history brush tools, we're going to open up this image in your resources folder, lady.jpg, lady.jpg. Just open up the image, right? Open up the image in your folder. Now the first thing we're going to do, we're going to duplicate the background with Ctrl J, right? Duplicate background, Ctrl J. So now right below your clone stamp tool, you have your history brush tools, right? So your history brush tools are made up of two tools. You have your history brush tool and then your art history brush tool. Now, in the order, you see your history brush tool comes before your art history brush tool, but I'm going to explain the art history brush tool first for a reason. I'm going to do that first, then afterwards I'll tell you about the history brush tool itself. It helps you to understand how the history brush tool works. So the art brush tool basically is, as the name goes, art brush, right? So what it does is more or less converts your digital work or your image to more or less like an oil painting, right? That's what it does. A lot of people could use it for several things, but that is essentially what it does. And it works very simple like your normal brush tools. So you click on your art brush tool. When you come over here on the property panel or the options bar, you have your size and hardness here. So we're going to leave that size at, we're going to make the size 72 pixels and leave your hardness as 100%. Then you see opacity. Okay, um let's make the opacity, say, okay, let's leave it as 100% for now. Then under style, leave it at tight short. Leave it at tight short. Tolerance 0, area 0. Now just watch as I show you what the art history brush tool does. So now this is your cursor. Just click and move around. Click and move around your image. Okay. As you can see, it more or less like distorts the image, right? It distorts it, turning it to, if you've seen an oil painting before, like an oil canvas work before, you'd know that this looks something very similar to that, right? It more or less turns it to an oil painting. Okay, so just keep playing around with it. Okay, good, good, good. Okay, so you see that, you see what we're talking about. You just play around, it turns it to um more or less like an oil painting. Okay, now let me assume, now I want you to also note something. Even as we're making use of this art brush tool, remember the art brush tool has sizes. The art brush tool has sizes, so we would play around with the sizes so you'd understand something deeper. Now if we increase the size of this brush from 72 to, say, about 150 pixels, you increase the size. Now watch what happens. Watch what happens. It distorts the image even more. Okay, it distorts your image even more, such that it's not as easy to make out what was there before. You see, it's not as easy to make out what was there before. It has distorted your image even more than it was initially. That is using a bigger brush. So a bigger brush size would distort your image even more. Now let's take it to a smaller brush size. We said at 72. Let's take it down to 30. Let's make it 30, right? Good. You could see the cursor is smaller. So now let's take it down to 30. Okay, so now we're painting over those same areas that we had been through initially. Just watch, the image details become clearer. Can you see the eyes here is becoming clearer? The eyes here becoming clearer. So That is exactly how the art brush tool works. It works a lot with sizes. So now as we play around, you see it's becoming a lot clearer. Okay, so you could just keep doing this as you wish. So smaller brushes bring out more details of your image, while larger brushes distort your image even more. Okay, now that is that about the art brush tool. You could play around with it. Maybe if you're a digital artist, you like to do illustrations and all of that, you like to convert your images to something a little more abstract, you could play around with your art brush tool. Also, the art brush tool has different styles. I like to increase the brush size so that you see this. It has different styles. Okay, let's click on tight long so you see what it becomes. Can you see that? It more or less makes it like, should I call it, what do I call this now? Maybe spaghetti or something. Spaghetti like images. Okay, let's move on to tout call long. You see, it calls your entire images. So basically what this art brush tool does, like I said, makes it look more like a painting, color painting, right? So good. Now we have spoken about the art brush tool, okay, and how it works. So I'm still distorting this image, still playing around with it, because we will need that in the next tool I'm going to show you, which is the history brush tool itself. So right above the art history brush tool, you have the history brush tool. So when you click on the history brush tool, now, when you come over here to your history state, you'd see all the brush strokes you have made, all the brush strokes you have made. Now, what your history brush tool does is it takes you back in time. It takes you back in time. So basically, it erases your brush strokes. So even if it wasn't the art brush tool I used, even if it was a normal brush tool or a pencil, your history brush tool erases it. So how we're going to do this now? Let's make this a let's increase the size of the history brush tool to, let's say, 200 pixels. 200 pixels. Now let's paint over it. Can you see that? It erases every single one of your brush strokes. Let's increase the size again to 500 pixels. Okay, no, that's 5,000. That's a little too large. Let's increase the size to 500 pixels. Good, good. So it erases all your brush strokes, every one of your brush strokes. That's what your history brush does. Okay, takes your image back. So let's assume that you have been working, or you've made a stroke with your brush and you just don't want to go back. You can't just go back at that point. Just take your history brush tool and delete over that particular area. Okay, now let's go to the normal brush tool, right? This is your normal brush tool. Okay, this is your normal brush tool. Let's play around with this a little. Okay, let's reduce the size first of all. Let's reduce the size to 500 pixels. Good. So let's play around with this. This is your normal brush tool, right? So you've made a stroke you don't want. You come right down to your history brush tool and then you erase. It would not touch your image. It only dictates the brush strokes and it erases all the brush strokes. So you have your image as perfect as you once left it. So how this is different from going back in history is that for this, you could easily just come to a particular spot and erase. Okay, you could come to a particular spot and erase, right? Unlike your history states that you just have to take it back to when you first opened the image. Okay, for this, you can actually come right back and erase a particular spot. Okay, so that's that about your history brush tool and your art history brush tool. We're going to move into the next two sets, which are the eraser tool sets. We are wrapping up Photoshop really fast. In the next video, I'm going to show you some very interesting things, giving you some more magic. Stay tuned. See you in the next video.